Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. One of the companies that I think is going to be extremely disruptive over the next decade is Cruise, the autonomous vehicle company, about 80% owned by General Motors. And when GM reported earnings on Tuesday, they gave a lot of airtime to Kyle Voigt, the CEO of Cruise, told a lot about what is going on at the company, development of the Cruise Origin vehicle, cost reductions there. And there were some interesting takeaways. So I want to go through those today. My name is Travis William. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And I'll put a link in the show notes to a deep dive I did on Cruise specifically and General Motors, why I think this is a great opportunity. But let's go to the most important slide from the earnings call. This is the Cruise slide from the earnings call, and there was a lot of detail that Kyle Voigt went over. A few things that I wanted to highlight. One is that they recently hit 390 concurrently running autonomous vehicles. They're currently operating in San Francisco, Phoenix, and the Austin area while testing in Dallas, Houston, and also Miami. But that is just a ton of vehicles. And the clear strategy for Cruise that they have laid out is they're going to basically land in as many places as possible and slowly expand that geofence that they're operating. So basically, you learn an area and then you continue to expand it outside of typically a downtown area to more suburban areas. So look for the company to land in more cities over the next year, but only be available in a relatively small area and then slowly expand that area. In a couple of years, the entire city is going to be available, just like most of the city of San Francisco is available for Cruise today. But the fact that they're running that many autonomous vehicles is really a good sign. Doing 10,000 rides a week, and said that it took 49 days to drive their third million miles. They will likely pass that fourth million number in about the next month. So that pace is picking up every single month. The safety number, I also wanted to highlight. Now, they didn't give specific details, but said that their collisions were 54% lower than humans in a comparable driving environment. This is something that is always critical, is where are you comparing against? And they're saying in a comparable driving environment. I also want to note that they said in the conference call that most of these collisions were actually the fault of the other person. If you go through Cruise's data in California, you can actually look up what each of these collisions is. And I've done that. There's some kind of goofy ones like a street sign falling on top of the car, a biker running into a car, but anything that happens has to be reported. So they're trying to at least put context to that. I want to see more data, but at least anecdotally, it seems like the safety number is moving in the right direction. But this is the big one right here, targeting costs below $1 per mile. This will be for the Cruise Origin vehicle. And then Kyle Voigt also said that that would be for the next generation hardware, which they're launching for the Cruise Origin. That will be a custom chip, some sensors that are about 75% cheaper than the sensors that are currently being tested. So these are costs that are going to continue coming down, especially as something like the Cruise Origin scales. But $1 per mile is a target that autonomous vehicles have been shooting for a long time. He said that that's the point where it actually makes sense for people not to own a car and just use a service like Cruise. And the fact that there is line of sight today to being under $1 per mile tells me that in the future, with further cost reductions and further scale, we could go even lower than that. Now, there's a long path ahead for Cruise, but I think we're starting to see the strategy really play out. I mentioned earlier how they're going to land in more cities and then slowly expand in each of those cities. Voigt said on the call that to blanket a city with autonomous vehicles, you're talking probably about a couple thousand vehicles. That will take a few years to play out. But think about how quickly it took Uber to go from being a black car service, typically only available in downtown areas, to being a service that was available all over the country, all over the world. Now, Cruise is going to try to do the same thing with autonomous vehicles, except it doesn't have to rely on drivers. It can run these vehicles about 20 hours per day. The costs are lower than Uber can compete with because Uber has to pay drivers because they're the ones that actually own the vehicles. They're actually sitting in the car, need to compensate them for their time. Cruise doesn't have to do that. They can fundamentally have a lower cost per mile. I think that's what's ultimately going to be very disruptive. So this is going to be a long road ahead, but the pace of expansion is extremely rapid for Cruise. And that's ultimately what I'm really excited about. For General Motors, the benefit is they own about 80% of Cruise. They're going to be funding some of this expansion. They've got a $5 billion line of credit that Cruise can use to build out the autonomous vehicle fleet. And this will take a long time to get to positive cash flow. But a decade from now, the best asset in General Motors may actually be Cruise. What do you think about the recent numbers from Cruise? Put your comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.